Ekonene. So, kabla nianze show, wacha nikuwa reminder, wacha niwaambie kitu moja. Jana kulikuwa na the Uncut Hip Hop Awards 2025 na the alternative media brand of the year ni Ekonene. So yes, tulibaki tumeshinda hii. Tulikuwa na yora anaitwa Ian huko and pia Mr. Editor pia tulikuwa naye hapo. So asanteni jo. This is courtesy of you out there. So yes, we actually won the alternative media brand. So one thing about this is hata hizi stories le nafanya, I try to update you on what's happening and yeah, once in a while if it's analysis we might disagree ikikam to opinion ama once in a while tunaweza baki tumepata news tufikiria ni hivi alafu tupata ni the other way around, but the fact that mnaendelea kututrust inamaanisha that when we make a mistake pia tuta apologize. But yeah, asante sana man. This means something. So yes, the Uncut. Sijui niweke wapi jo kabla nianze hii story. Wacha ni movie kidogo. Ibaki nimecheki hapo. Yeah, nimesiti hapo. Sinaonekana. So yeah, wacha tuanze na vitu zile happen. So yesterday was a very interesting day and Ruto kuna vile alibaki ameishia Mansaiza White House na wakapatana na mzee mwenyewe Trump. Na Trump of course waganaza ovyo. So wacha tucheki kile Trump alisema. Alafu sasa baadaye tuangalie like now the part of Ruto that tunafaa either kama unataka kubambika utabambika, kama unafaa kuwa worried utakuwa worried. But hii ndio kitu Trump alisema juu ya Kenya. Ileta mekona meet Ruto.
To see you again. The president of Kenya. We have the Olympics here. You know, they do very well in the Olympics, those runners. I don't know what the heck you do with those runners, but they are very good. I've been watching them for a long time. So we have the Olympics coming to the United States. You know that. Thank you very much. And you'll come as our guest. Thank you.
Yeah, nasikia. So Ruto alikuwa invited as the guest. That means that Ruto is going to take another trip. I guess Olympic na happen when 2026. Okay, so there's that. But then another thing that also happened was kuna hii deal ile Ruto alibaki amesign and the deal was about health. Now of course unajua Ruto amekuwa kipush sana story zake za universal healthcare. So alimit Marco Rubio and wacha tuangalie the health part. Alafu tuangalie something else that Marco Rubio said that I think Ruto ana risk in his own way. Maybe, I don't know if he knows if he's risking it or not, but wacha tusikize history ya Marco Rubio. So kama unashindwa Marco Rubio ni nani? Of course Marco Rubio anakuwa ni the Secretary of State. Yes, if I'm not wrong, yes. And yeah, wacha tumsikize. So hapa alikuwa anabonga juu ya how they are going to invest in Kenya.
And so for us, the first, we hope to sign many of these in the days to come. But the first one we're going to sign is with Kenya. And the reason why is twofold. Number one, because of our close partnership. Number two, because they have stable and strong institutions, both in government and in the healthcare sector. And over the next few years, we're going to be investing $1.6 billion in health assistance over the next 5 years.
So $1.6 billion, that would come to around 208 billion Kenyan shillings. Yeah, that's a lot of money. Considering that Sha ilikuwa inafaa kuinvest how much? Was it 104 billion? Ama tuko tunaangalia nini in Sha? Remember it was something like that because it was $800 million. So this is like double that. I'd want to know like what specifically they are investing it because alibonga juu ya infrastructure. So I'm wondering, does this infrastructure also involve hospitals? I don't understand that part. But do you think this is a good deal? I actually think it's a good deal because I think kuna wase wale wameamua ikikam to Ruto ni blanket condemnation. So kwa wase everything is bad. Kwangu I don't look at it that way. I also want Kenya to win. Najua hizi kwa that nitake Kenya lose so that Ruto loses. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like if Kenya is winning, Kenya is winning. Any form of investment ikikam hivi inakuwa a good thing. The only thing of course ni a lot of this money will still be stolen. That's just the Kenyan way. But wacha tuendelee.
And you'll see how that program works out. But the investment is in combination. It will allow us, first of all, to leverage the private sector to create a sustainable U.S. health assistance model around the world, and not just in Kenya. But this is the perfect place to prove that it's going to work because it is going to work. And what it means is that money is not just going to be spent to provide medicine and care. It's going to be spent to improve the domestic infrastructure, healthcare infrastructure, so that in 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years, countries will say, we no longer need this much assistance, if any, because we have our own system.
Okay, so the United States Health Assistance. This is what I don't know what's this is about, because nakumbuka nikicheki Amenya, and on Amenya's side he was throwing cold water on this, but Amenya pia on nikicheki anything that he says about this government, to a certain level I have to take it with a pinch of salt, because I know that he doesn't like the government, and I think ye mwenye pia amefika that level of anything that the government does is wrong, and yes, he's within his rights of course kufikiria hivyo. So alibaki ameandika something about this where alikuwa nasema this is about data, najua like ase wanalipa hii 2.6 yani hii 1.6 billion dollars because they want Kenyan data, and that is what alikuwa nasema nini, alikuwa ameandikia, this was who alikuwa ameandikia Duale something like, Bwana CS, we want full disclosure of the agreement documents we read for ourselves. Then Duale alikuwa ameandika, protecting Kenya's health data, ikakuwa ni your health data is a national strategic asset. Under the new US-Kenya framework, all data sharing follows Kenya's laws. Only de-identified aggregated data is shared. Approvals must go through and the data commissioner. Okay, than the Digital Health Act. Alafu the Data Protection, Digital Health Act and Data Protection Act fully apply your privacy, your security. Then kukakuwa na hiyo story. So that was there. And what else had he said? Alikuwa kuna msemini alikuwa ameandika ni Kyle Spencer. Alikuwa ameandika ni the US-KE deal represents a major increase in US mass surveillance capabilities. It will allow the US to see the name and location of everyone who uses a Kenya healthcare facility in real time and get a copy of their biometrics. Damn, okay. I don't know. Okay. And yes, so this is the whole debate around historial data. So now I don't know what to think about it. Yes, because sasa ilikuwa another thing that Amenya had written was alikuwa ameandika like Kenya becomes the first country to do what, something Amenya had written. So I don't know what to think about this. Should I be worried, ama should I just take it as a win? Because I think sometimes su worry sana, and one thing we have to ask ourselves is, if the US actually wants our data, do they need to go through this? I think they've reached a level where they don't need to go through anything. Najua wanaweza nini. So ilikuwa Amenya alikuwa ameandika ni breaking, Kenya becomes the first African country to sign the controversial US health MOUs, earning 1.6 billion in funds dispersed through the next 5 years in exchange for healthcare data and specimens for the next 25 years. Okay. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio hints at 50 more countries signing these deals. So this is something I think I'll need to look for Amenya, tubaki tumemuuliza, like what does he mean by this health data? What health data are we talking about? And what specimens, especially the specimens? That's what I'd want to know, like which specimens are these? Najua. So yeah, it's a pretty controversial subject, and I'll say I'm not fully versed on it, but I'm going to try and learn more about it. But what I also found to be super interesting kwa hii conversation ni Marco Rubio alibonga juu the partnership between Kenya and the US, and one of the things that we partner in, of course, is in the fight against terrorism. Wacha tusikize.
Well, Kenya is one of our strongest partners in so many different fields, whether it's the fight that we've fought together against terrorism on the continent, but beyond that, in our own hemisphere, Kenya's played an extraordinary role, really heroic role in trying to help stabilize Haiti. It's a very difficult situation. They've carried a huge burden as a country for the better part of 2 years now, and had it not been for their engagement.
So impact terrorism is what I wanted to talk about. Right now, Kenya ime-adopt a semi-open borders policy. So nakumbuka majuzi kuna an MP from NFD, the Northern Frontier, alikuwa anasema that there is nothing like a Kenyan Somali. Every Somali is Kenyan. And that's a very risky statement, especially in the fight against terrorism. And when Ruto adopts this open borders policy, where does that put Kenya? Like, at what point will the Kenyan passport be so affected? Because if someone gets a Kenyan passport and then travels to another country and commits a terrorist act, itasemekana a Kenyan committed the terrorist act. There won't be any distinction that, you know what, this was not a Kenyan, this is someone who got a Kenyan passport but they are not truly Kenyan. No, hakutakuwa na hizo. So these are some of the things that Ruto needs to think about. But I don't know, najua tunakam to the 2027 elections, so saa hizi I think Ruto is just focused on winning, but he has to ask himself, like, he's going to win at what cost. Najua that has to be one of the things that he needs to ask himself. So but tukitoka hapo, moja turudi back to Kenya, na pia tukirudi Kenya, it's still about Ruto, it's still about the Kenya Kwanza government. So the Kenya Kwanza government has been selling a lot of stuff. So they plan to sell Kenya Pipeline to Uganda, like part of it. I think 65% is going to be sold. So Uganda might end up being a bigger shareholder at Kenya Pipeline than Kenya itself. That's interesting, and that's dangerous, and that's scary. But wacha tutacross your river time tutafika. Saizi the big debate imekuwa around the sale of Safaricom, because the government wants to sell its 15% stake in Safaricom. And wakisell 15%, wanasema they're going to make 204 billion, and then pia watapatiwa dividends upfront za 44 billion. So it comes to around maybe 248 billion. And this is what's supposed to be used kwa stories za iteka kwa the National Infrastructure Fund and the Sovereign Wealth Fund. So this is supposed to help hizi stories za kina Rironi, najua the Mau Rironi Road. But it may also bring up a whole other debate, because according to Ndindi Nyoro, the government is underselling. It's selling this stake yake at a lower price than it should sell. And is this possible? Yes, it is. Why? Because but wacha tusikize Dede.
The biggest concern that we must have as Kenyans is the valuation at which the government is proposing to exit 15% stake in Safaricom. Because they want to sell per share at 34 shillings. And if you look at the recent past, including last week, Safaricom share touched even 30, past 30 last week. But in the last 5 years, and especially in 2021, Safaricom share was above 45 shillings in August of 2021. And when you are valuing on how to buy or sell a company, you as the seller must get the best deal in terms of the price.
Damn, okay. So ilikuwa imefika 45 and we are selling at 34. And so yeye anasema that fact that ishaifika the 45, we should be selling it at least 45. So this is interesting, because I think when you are tukiangalia share price kasa hizi nasemekana the current Safaricom share price is 29.45 shillings. So if the current price is 29.45 and we are selling at 34, I think then it's the right price. Yes, because the way shares work, it does not matter that a share was 200 shillings last week. Hawezi come, if I'm selling you my shares right now and the price has dropped from 200 shillings to 100 shillings, I can't tell you, since the shares were 200 shillings last week, I need to sell to you at 200 shillings. So I think that is one of the things that I'd say Dede is being dishonest, because if you're actually selling at 34, because don't forget, the government is the people and the people is the government. If you're actually selling at 34, then it's a good deal, najua, if it can be justified. So that's what I'm going to say. So easy if it is some politicians, you always have to take it with a pinch of salt, because don't forget, the politicians will want to just bash anything and score political points. But this specific point from him made no sense. Yes, just because it was 45 shillings 4 years ago does not mean that it's ever going to go to 4 years where it was. Like, life does not work that way. But tuendele.
But it looks like the people who are representing the people of Kenya in government in this discussion and sale, they actually sided with the buyers. and they decided to sell Safaricom for a song. Because a company that was trading at 45 shillings per share in 2021, the government is unashamedly telling Kenyans that they want to sell the same company at 34 shillings today.
If the share has gone down, it's gone down. Like, I'd look at what? I'd look at ile company ya Polaroid. So kuna kuagana this story. I don't know how true this story is, but I don't know if it's a myth, ama it's a fable, ama it's just a legend. But kuna kuagana the legend ya Polaroid inasemekanaga like walikuwa offered like billions of dollars. Alafu wakakataa. Then what happened? The smartphone showed up. And after the smartphone, of course, Polaroid camera ikabaki imedip kabisa. Watu wangetokea baadaye waseme like, you know what, since last week we were $1 billion company and right now the smartphone has showed up. Since last year we were $1 billion company and like right now the smartphone has showed up, we need to be paid. So I think with Dede, he needs to be honest and just tell Kenyans that shares don't work like this. Shares don't work like just because the price was this, then the price will be this. Like kuna kuagana hizo dips. Inaenda juu, inaenda chini, inaenda juu, inaenda chini. How would I also look at this? It's like, let's say msee alikuwa na dollars kwa account yake. Alafu time alikuwa na dollar, something happened to him, maybe health wise, and he's stuck in a coma. And the dollar at this time, it's maybe 2023 December, I think that's when the dollar ilikuwa imeanguka kabisa, if I'm not wrong. So one shilling imeanguka. So 1 shilling was like $1 was 160 shillings. So let's say this guy wakes up because he had $20,000, so he knew he had 3.2 million shillings. He wakes up and he's told, you know what, that $20,000 is right now worth 2.6 million shillings. He can't say, but no, that time it was worth 160, so give me 160. It doesn't work that way. Might the dollar go past 160 at some point? Yes, that's a possibility. But we're just saying that things don't work the way Dede wants them to work. So I think in any argument yake, I'd have wanted it to have more meat than just to be based on what the Safaricom price was at your point. But tuendelee kidogo.
Most of the companies listed in the NSE as we talk are selling, and most of them, including banks, are selling past the 2021 levels. But now we want to give a discount based on the 2021 valuation of a 25% discount to the current buyers. And possibly this should be investigated. Why? Even after so many companies have been recording even 200% increase, Safaricom share, even with the bullish market, has not matched many of the companies in terms of the rise in share price.
Okay, that can be argued. Okay, we can argue, but if there's been market manipulation all this time, Mr. Ndindi Nyoro, you should have told us this before Safaricom was being sold in quotes. This is what you should have told us. So this is reasoning ya Dede. Dede, I always take everything he says easy, because I also know him that in 2017, 2018, he was the sort of guy who was saying that Uhuru should become a dictator. So he's not also, he'll always play politics with everything. So I don't know what he stands for. If you were to ask me, what does Ndindi Nyoro stand for? A lot of people will say that the fact that he's young, he stands for revolutionary leadership, he stands for change. But I don't know. Like, if you had to ask me, what does he stand for? I don't know. Because if 1 minute he can say, let Kenya be a dictatorship, then the minute amekosana Ruto, now Kenya should not be a dictatorship. Like, what do you stand for? So I don't know that. But tumalizie na yeye.
Probably there was a deliberate suppression of the share. And all I want to say is that the government is underselling Safaricom, and it is to the detriment of all Kenyans. Secondly, the proposal, because I've been there and I have in some of these discussions before, and especially when Kenya was seeking to get optimal value for the stake, the best thing in terms of the sale of Safaricom was, first of all, to divide Safaricom into 3 companies.
Okay, kulikuwa nayo story ile kwa inasemekana that Safaricom needs to be divided. M-Pesa needs to be like a company within itself, like equal independent of Safaricom. So I remember there was that debate quite because M-Pesa has become this sort of financial company, a financial entity, and it does not behave like a financial entity. So I remember there was that. Would maybe splitting it be better for the Kenya government? Maybe. I don't know.
Before the sale, you have the telco as Safaricom, you have a tower company, and you have Safaricom Financial Services. Because once you do that divestiture, the sum of the 3 would by all means be bigger in terms of value than the whole that is called Safaricom.
So, umesikia hapa pia Dede anatuambia that hii idea ya selling Safaricom has been there and he was in those rooms. But the funny thing is, we never had these stories. And this is the reason why I have to ask, like, Mr. Ndindi Nyoro, what do you stand for, man? Or like, what do you stand for? Like, because then you'd have told us your time that this thing was being sold and you didn't agree with 1, 2, 3 things. So there was that. But apart from that, pia, of course, the government itself is trying to justify his story. So kuna vile ubuda anaitwa Mbadi alibaki ameishia Citizen and he was trying to explain history yote. So alikuwa anapatiana options, like what are the options for this upcoming Mau Rironi, because I think that's what we are talking about right now. Everyone is Mau Rironi. How is this supposed to be funded? And I think history, if it's supposed to be funded through tolls, that's still in court. Yes, people have gone to court because it means that if you're still paying the fuel levy, why do we have to still kama tunapay the fuel levy, why do we still have to pay for toll stations? That's number one. Alafu the other thing pia ni, if like kuna highways that are free to use, why is the highways that is zingine, like why are we going to be charged to use this? So that is one of the things that we need to find out, like what's going to happen with that. So hiyo ni kitu moja na look forward to. Konene, ni the festive season. So wacha nikuulize jo, hii time yote umekuwa ukisikia mwafa anasema Lemfi. Usha try Lemfi? Kama uja try, baki umejua kuwa Lemfi iko na the most competitive exchange rates. Alafu pia unzabaki umepay directly kwa pay bill na till numbers zile ziko Kenya. Alafu pia unzabaki umesend ama umereceive do, whether uko US, uko UK, uko Canada ama uko UAE. So nangoja nini? Changamka, tumia promo code EKONENE, alafu utabaki umepata pia a $20 sign up reward on your first $50 transaction. So nangoja nini? Changamka, ingia Lemfi, international payments for everyone. EKONENE. But saa hizi kilezataka kusikia ni Mbadi ya kibonga nje history ya Safaricom. And let's hear how he tries to justify why they sold this and vile itatumika kwa the national infrastructure bond. Yes, let's listen to part of Nini yake.
To the national psyche of people that have been saying we have this stake here, how do you calm the nerves of those that are saying how do you sell off a company fetching you up to 18 billion shillings per year?
Yeah, first of all, I want to make it very clear that what we are doing is what we call unlocking value for a mature investment. The Safaricom PLC, as an investment for the Republic of Kenya, as it is today, is a mature investment. And that is what you can unlock. You can unlock the value and invest it in other productive ventures. And I will tell you for a fact.
So wacha ni bongejeo part. So anabongejeo mature investment. Mature investment ni where you invest in something and at some point you end up selling either your whole stake or part of your stake because you feel like, you know what, this thing has grown to a certain level that maybe was not there originally. So let's say ulinunua shares maybe as a Safaricom back in the day, size ni 29 bob, maybe ulinunua zikiwa 20 bob, zinafika 29 unaamua like wacha tu niuze part of it and then yes, so that's called your a mature investment. So tuendelee.
some that this probably the right time to divest, because again, this company is surviving on technology. And digital technology advances and changes. Where we are is the 5G and, of course, the fiber. The next stage is for fintech and expansion in the region. You need to free and unlock government investment in this company to be able to advance. But again, something else is that I don't know how much time this would take, but I will tell you for a fact that for us to be able to continue doing infrastructure projects in this country, you need to have capital. You need to have resources to do it.
Okay, so kumekuwa na story vile nasema, this is all about this Mauri Roni thing. I think this is the reason why tumeanza kusikia history ya Safaricom and the 15% stake. And kumekuwa na like, where is the money going to come from? Of course, Kenya inakuwaga na do mingi sana. Vile ninasema, the last time nili sit down with Itumbi, I talked about Kenya losing 2 billion per day. He dismissed it. But then I think the Auditor General claimed that we can't account for 300 billion. So kuna kuwaga na hizo figures, like it's such ridiculous figures that you're there like, if we can't account for that, how will we account for this ido ya Safaricom? Like, how are you going to account for it? What guarantees do we have that after this thing is sold, it's going to be used in the right way?
And presently, you can do it in two ways. One is taxation, the other one is debt. Now, taxation, putting more or hiking taxes is not an option.
Right.
Going to more debt is not an option. Yet we have huge investment projects that we need to put money in to be able to realize economic growth that would create job opportunities to our country.
Right.
Now, you need to have more creative ways of raising funds, and this is one of them. Now, the other thing that I would also mention, it is not that the government of Kenya will now forgo the 16 or 18 billion. We will still get almost about 10 billion every year if we continue with the current rates of performance or dividend or profitability of Safaricom PLC.
So yes, kona shindwa ni nini, unasikia hapo hii story yote ikianza, Sam Gituku talked about the Kenya government making 18 billion from Safaricom every year. So utasikia vile msata try ku break down. I think he was trying to break it down that the Kenya government will still make 10 billion and it's going to miss out on this 7 billion. But if you're investing this 245 billion in something else, it should be able to bring back your 7 billion. I think that also actually makes sense. He didn't explain it like that, but wacha tusikie.
What you forgo is probably about 7 billion per year, which if we were to reason that way in straight line, we are receiving 200 billion today. How long will you receive that money at 7 billion shillings? If we were to take that simplistic arithmetic, it's about 30 years. Now, depending on where you invest this money, because I think the fear maybe Kenyans have here is that we are divesting in Safaricom 15%, getting this money and consuming it or putting it in budgetary support. That is not what we intend to do. What we intend to do is to productively use the resources that we are going to raise by divesting 15% in Safaricom and any other privatization, put it in a national infrastructure fund, which then we would use to link the private sector and institutional investors with public investment or public infrastructure.
So, hiyo part ya kwanza, where he talks about it will take us over 30 years to get the 244, one way to look at it would be, okay, I think he said it's a very simplistic way to look at it, because I'd be like, that 244 that would take us 30 years would be strictly profit. It would not be our capital. You see, if you sell your 15% stake, you're getting money out. Like, this is not money that's so hatuwezi sema that it would take us 30 years, because the 30 years would take us would be profit. That would be profit. Our original 244, if it's still 244, would still be intact. But wacha tuendelee. So I understand, I think both cases. I understand what Dede is trying to say, and I also understand what this dude is trying to say. But my problem with both of them is we live in a country where everything is inflated. Because when you come to think about it, I don't know how long easy barabara zitakuwa, but the fact that they always try to convince us that 1 kilometer, okay, I'm not a civil engineer, and if you're a civil engineer you can correct me on this, but I always find these figures to be ridiculous. These figures of like 1 kilometer takes around 1 billion shillings. I know iko huko juu ya hewa, but 1 billion shillings is still a lot of money. I feel like suchezwa, cause nakumbuka nikiangalia price ya China wakitengeneza ile bridge yao ile huko iko juu kabisa. I think walitengeneza bridge fulani iko like over 6,000 meters above sea level, and that Nini bridge was actually like the same price as expressway ya Kenya. So is it that the labor from outside iko that expensive ama what? I don't know. So but history and the National Infrastructure Fund itaendelea kuspark debate. Mi mwenyewe saizi I think I need to put it as part of my mission kutry na kupata ubuda anaitwa Ndindi Nyoro and to try and see if we can get him, because me all I'd want to know is what he stands for so that I can be able to trust him more, because right now I think he's just trying to earn score political points, because right now if you come from the mountain and you criticize the president, there's a certain level of like political mileage that you get, and I feel like that's what right now he's going after. So he might be saying the right thing, but from his history we can't trust him. He's the sort of person who, if he supports a president, he'll want the president to break the law. If he does not support a president, he'll want that president to now follow the law. So now with that it becomes tricky, like what do you stand for, you see? And that's what I'm asking myself, what does Ndindi stand for? Should we trust what he's saying? And but more importantly, I think the question to ask ourselves is, pesa, will it be used the way it's supposed to be used, or will it just be stolen? Because we've seen these things happen in Kenya where they say this thing is supposed to cost this amount of money and then it ends up being inflated. Kumbuka what happened with the SGR. SGR ended up being inflated and we spent so much, the amount of money we're supposed to use. So the same thing with this project. Is it going to work the same price, or it's going to be inflated? Because don't forget, ini barabara kama hizo tengezwa mostly a prefabricated stuff, and prefabricated means that the price tunajuanga the factory. All we have to do is transport hiyo kitu imekuwa prefabbed to the destination. That's why nimekuwa nikichekiwa sana uliza hizi ni vitu gani kubwa hivi zinatransportiwa bila kubreakiwa down, because I think hata some of those prefabs tunazitoa kutoka China direct, so zikikam tu ni kuweka tu. So but let's wait and see what's going to happen. I don't know. Eko nene.